This world is a complicated place. One that is not so easily described with words like good or evil, right or wrong. Yes, today we are talking about a movie of pure realism. Not one that completely throws out logic for the sake of a bad guy winning at the very end. Nor are we talking about the evils of the world with a bunch of old men sitting around while an assassin with a silent shotgun follows them. No, this time we're talking about Sicario, the hitman, and all the realism he provides. Hello and welcome back to another midnight showing. As always, I'm Kelly, and I just got out of Sicario, which is Spanish for hitman, for those wondering. They tell you in the opening segments of the movie. I find it hilarious. I really want to do an opening involving Quieto Hitman Reborn, which I'm currently rewatching, but I just don't know enough about After Effects to do the little flame effect, and I didn't have a box to stick it in. I just wanted to put that out there. Not many of you are going to get that joke, but I thought that would have been a hilarious opening. I just couldn't do it. So, yeah, let's talk about this movie. And for those who don't want to hear anything, go see this movie. Just go see it. It's dark. And it's not that stupid dark for the sake of dark, like I kind of poke fun at Nightcrawler and No Country for Old Men in the beginning opening. It's not that stupid kind that gets critical praise, even though anybody with a brain thinking about the situations know that they're just exaggerated as much as cartoons. No. This movie, if there's one word to describe this movie without any spoilers whatsoever, it is real. Not only do I think that everything that happened on screen could happen, I'm convinced that it did at one point or another. Maybe certain events were moved around out of orders. Maybe some weird name changes took place. Maybe all of that. But I could completely see this happening in the real world. And it is... oh my god, this movie is intense. It's not quite No Escape intense, which I may or may not have a video on that one coming. It's still kind of iffy when that one's coming, but that one gets a recommended to see as well if you're wondering. But it's not quite that intense, but it is one of those ones that had me nail biting on the edge of my seat. And part of that is the way that it's shot. But before I actually start going into things, I just want to put one thing clear. I'm not going to do a spoiler section on this one because this is more of a discussion movie rather than a spoiler movie. It's very, very well done with acting that blows you away. Benicio Del Toro. By God, the last thing I saw you in was Guardians of the Galaxy as the Collector, and then just how cartoonish that was. And then seeing you in this, I mean, it's like night and day difference. The difference between the opening of my video and the ending of my video, or this part of the video. I mean, it's like, wow, you just blew my mind. And that's not to say that he's the only one that does this. Emily Blunt is just as good, if not better. Everybody else is kind of just, they're good. They're not to these mind-blowing statuses, but they were really good. So, yeah, it's just, this movie was good. It was great. This is one of the best films I've seen thus far this year. I'm actually keeping a list for my top 10 list I want to do at the very end of the year. Well, start of next year. You get the idea. Look, it's... there's one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm not going to spoil this experience for you. I'll talk about some of the themes and the subjects, but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about certain plot points. I might bring up a scene or two, but I'm planning on keeping this one relatively short for the sake of, you need to go see this film. If I can't state that enough, go see this movie immediately. Gets a stamp of approval. If I knew how to use Photoshop, I put a stamp right there and just say, go see it. It's badass, it's amazing, it's awesome, and you won't regret a single cent that you spend on this movie. So, with all that said, there are some things I do want to talk about. The best thing I can describe this movie is not only real, but it's dark with purpose. Too often we think that darker stories are somehow better than other stories. I try to describe my love of anime to people. How it tells not just kiddish stories, but mature stories, and stories that, frankly, we just need more of. I'm not going to say that every anime is a masterpiece, but I'm not going to say that you should just write it off as being kid stuff because there's bright colors being used. This is actually a pretty heavy-duty show, more in the beginning than in the ending, but it's actually... You see all the colors here? Yeah, it's a pretty heavy-duty show. So, when something like this can do a dark, mature story, I appreciate it amazingly. But you want to know what I appreciate more? Is when a movie can do a dark and gritty story without seeming depressing or hopeless. This movie is a discussion movie. It's bringing up topics about the real world, how politics work, how law enforcement works, what's right to do, what's wrong to do, where do you put the border? Is it your job to even put up the line for you to cross, or is it up to other people, elected officials? This is all stuff brought up by this movie in an attempt of just mind-fucking you, I guess, because by the end of it, you feel almost as brain-raped as freaking Emily Blunt's character inside of this, who is by far the moral center of the movie. It's dark with purpose. It's ideals versus reality, and the clash that happens across the whole film. Emily Blunt is literally the ideals of the movie, and then Benicio Del Toro, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, dude. I'm not very good at that unless I've actually heard it spoken to me. But you are basically reality itself. Is he evil? Is she actually any good? Those are all questions brought up by this entire film and its runtime. And it's just amazing how this dark story is really dark. And I don't hate it for it. I usually hate when stories do dark stuff. Going back to my bag, you might be able to see my original review of Nightcrawler. How I said that it's a really good critical movie, but it's one of the dumbest endings possible because it throws logic out the window, and for the sake that it's just an uncomfortable sit. As much as Jake Gyllenhaal did amazing in that film, I have no intention to go buy it. I have no intention of ever watching it again unless somebody forces me to do it for a Patreon thing. Which, no, I don't have a Patreon. I'm not going to do a Patreon for a long time. That's not what this is about. But yeah, unless something like that happens, I'm probably never going to look at Nightcrawler again. It just does. It was stupidly dark. It was dark for no reason. And this movie is like the anti-Nightcrawler. This is the dark movie with a point and purpose. It didn't throw out logic. In fact, it reveled at throwing the logic in your face. And that's one of the reasons why this movie, I believe, is just so goddamn good. Is because of the fact that it really does take logic, turn it up on its head, and then twist it back around till you can't tell which way it's sitting anymore. The big overall theme of this movie is right versus wrong. Do we spend more time trying to get the guy? Do we compromise our principles and do things under the table and get things done to get the people who are responsible for this? Or do we go into do everything by the book? Now, when you do things by the book, you can hit so many prosecutions. You get everything that you want. The problem's not going away, though, is it? Deportation gets this controversial topic a lot. Yeah, we take all of these illegals and we deport them back to Mexico. Within another month, most of them have either come back or settled into Mexico permanently. But, well, that's not true. Most of them have just tried to come back and failed, but a lot of them have actually come back and succeeded. My dad, working in construction, yeah, he experienced a lot of these types of situations. And trust me when I say that my opinion of immigration would probably piss the people off, so I'm not going to state it. But, yeah, does deporting them actually do any good? Arguable at best. But, yeah, take that into law enforcement standpoint. With every single drug dealer, pimp, mule, cartel, mafia crime boss families, with every single one that we actually do take down, how many spring up to take their place? Are we doing any good by following by the book? But then again, when do you become the monster by ignoring the procedures that are there for a reason? The reason why we have a book is so that we aren't like them. And that's kind of the overall summation of this entire movie as a whole. Now, I'm only going to talk about two characters in particular. That'd be Emily Blunt's character and Benicio Del Toro. I think I said that right, yeah, Del Toro. But yeah, I'm only going to talk about those two in this entire thing. Everyone else is serviceable. They're fine. I'm not going to say that they're bad. They're actually really good and well performed. Their boss, Josh Brolin or something like that. Brolin. I can't remember his full name. He was actually spot on. In fact, he was probably the only part that added a little bit of levity with some of his more sarcastic comments about things to the whole movie. This movie is not levity. I mean, it is. When I say it's dark, I mean it is dark. Like, exploitatively dark. There's mutilated bodies. There's shootouts where people's heads are exploding. There are some pretty intense things inside of this movie. So when I say that it is dark, I don't want to make it undersell this at all. I mean, it is really dark. But that's what makes it all the more better, because it has a point for being so goddamn dark. It's trying to be as realistic as possible. So, yeah, let's talk about the two characters. First off, let's talk about Emily Blunt's character. She is an FBI agent who is part of a hostage rescue task force, and her job is basically to just go on the missions. She's usually in full SWAT gear as they're doing raids on buildings to try to save hostages and whatnot, that kind of stuff. The movie opens with her on one of these raids where they get into this house and there's no bodies. And then they realize, because one of them took a shotgun blast at her and it missed, blew a hole in the wall, and they see that the bodies are all behind the drywall. And there's at least 40 of them all over this house. So some pretty dark shit inside of this first opening. Well, she gets contracted by Josh Brolin to join his group to try to basically stop the people responsible for such an act. What progresses further is her going further and further down this rabbit hole of, it's not even moral grayness, it's moral blackness. It is just a black hole of just moral shit thrown at her. And over the course of the movie, you go from this really strong-willed character who knows basically where she stands and everything, to this morally confused, maybe we're doing the right thing, maybe we're not, to this just complete broken mess by the end of the film. I mean, this is Oscar-worthy character transition that is just beautifully done. And Emily Blunt, I actually heard just recently that she was one of the people considered. She was actually the first cast consideration for Black Widow, who is now played by Scarlett Johansson. And yeah, this movie makes me want to see her as Black Widow really, really, really bad, because she'd have added this new level that I think that Scarlett Johansson, even with the course of the last Avengers movie, only barely scratched the surface of what she could do from an acting perspective. I mean, this is an Oscar-worthy moment that if it gets ignored at the Oscars, people are gonna flip. I mean, this is a performance that can't be ignored. The whole descent into this black hole is just so beautifully done by her. It's heartbreaking. And that's not kind of, I'm not trying to hint at a spoiler, because I'm not going to try to get the ending. It's heartbreaking because you feel for her really, really bad. And I'm not going to act like she dies or anything like that. No. The movie is left open for interpretation, and she ends up relatively fine. It's just more of her mind's been pretty messed up, and she doesn't know what's right and what's wrong anymore, and she's trying to succumb to all of that. But then let's get down to Benicio Del Toro's character. Now, he's already working for this task force as a DOJ advisor, which is political jargon for he's a mercenary who knows what's going on in the situation, and he can help us out. Basically, his role is he is a hitman. He is Sicario. He is the whole argument here. You point him at a target, as long as it gets him closer to his end goal, which he does have one. I'm not going to spoil what it is, because it's kind of like his entire character rolled up in a ball. But he has an end goal, and as long as you point him at it, he doesn't care who he works for, whether it be the U.S. government, rival cartels, it doesn't matter. As long as you're pointing him in the right direction, he'll keep going forward. And he's the one who shows, over the course, the positives and negatives of being such a person. The positives being that he can impart his wisdom from various situations and different sides of different arguments onto newbies like Emily Blunt, Mrs. Blunt. So, but he also shows the dark sides of that when he takes more over his hitman role and shoots lots of people and has gunfights in the middle of civilized areas. That sort of thing. There's one point inside the movie where he saves Blunt from a bad situation, and you can feel them kind of getting this, not really romance, but more of mutual respect for each other, because she instantly looks at him and sees what he is. She didn't even need to be told what he was. It was pretty clear to her, and she treated him like crap throughout this whole first half of the movie. And then after this point, they kind of get out this mutual respect thing, which, with things that happen later on in the film, she's not even sure if he deserves that. It's bringing the questions to the forefront and leaving it up to you to decide who's right, who's wrong, and what the characters are about. And Benicio Del Toro just blew you away for this. His subtle hand gestures, the way that he doesn't seem to be able to finish some of his sentences. Don't get me wrong, it's not like that. It's more of, he'll just say it half of the sentence, but the point is completely conveyed across to the audience, as well as the characters on screen, as to what his entire meaning is. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to finish that sentence. He only says as many words as he needs to. It's kind of a overall summation of what it means to be a mercenary. And that's basically what he is. He's a mercenary and a hitman. You could even argue that he's even worse than that because he works for cartels. But Del Toro, his subtle movements, his nightmarish flashback at the very beginning of the film when they're just on the plane, he's sleeping and you can just see him twitching and his hand going crazy, and you just see him wake up from what is clearly a violent nightmare. So many movies would have just shown us that. nightmare and got it intercut with like flashes of everything that was happening to him, how it relates to his overall character. You're foreshadowing his entire journey across the movie. No, you don't need that, and Del Toro proved that inside of this. And by God, I want to see more out of him. I want to see more than just the collector. I want to see him go and do some more really, I want to see more of dark films and see what he can really pull out of the psyche of some of his characters. I really do. And again, Oscar-worthy performance. Snuffed. If this is ignored for some BS biographical film later on, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make fun of The Theory of Everything or The Imitation Game or Selma or any of the other string of biographical films that came out last year who dominated the entirety of the Oscars. I'm just saying there were other movies last year, people. There were a lot of other movies last year. Gotta acknowledge them too, please. But if they ignore his performance for one of those, again, these two performances blew you away. You can't do that. Don't do that. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing I can really talk about more now is spoilers, and I'm not going to do that because my final verdict, go see this movie immediately. Don't wait to go to a cheap theater. Give it all the money. Make this the #1 movie of the weekend. Please, for the love of God, do that. And that's not to say anything about The Martian or The Walk. I'll probably go see those later this week. It's just, no, this movie deserves more attention. And it better damn well get it because, okay, there is something else I can talk about without it. The way this movie is shot, the cinematography is mind-blowingly amazing. With shots that I've never really seen most of these shots done, or at least done this well inside of films before. We get a lot of points where, yeah, the whole scene is being shown via the satellite cam. And it's just so intense. There's one scene, particularly near the end, where they're going on yet another mission. There's a lot of those inside of this movie. That they're all getting ready to do this night raid of a tunnel. So they all have the night vision goggles, and you have the other ones who have that other black and white spectrum that detects. It's not infrared. It's something else. I'm trying to think of what it's called. But yeah, they've got those, and then you have the standard night vision goggles, and the movie keeps cutting from different people's perspectives. So they keep cutting from the perspective of them seeing through this. At one point, it'll be a night vision, and then it'll turn into this little black and white one that I can't remember. And then it'll cut to the satellite cam, just showing these dots walking from one area to the end goal. And it is easily one of the best sequences I've ever seen in a film. And very little of it has actually not processed and edited. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they CGI'd the shit out of this scene. But you know what? It looks like exactly what it looked like. I had one of those goggle things on my hand right now, and I'm looking through it. It's just perfect. And I can't see another way of this scene being shot. Especially when they get to Del Toro's character entering the cave first to take care of the bad guys. Where it completely does away with those things. And all you see is the cave entrance. And he stands upright, backlit of course because you have to. And pulls out the knife, holds it out like this. And as he walks towards the camera, all you see is that knife going across. It's so slow, but it helps build the tension, and it's just, you can't make any details. This man is a monster, and it's a beautiful shot, and it blew me away in my theater. I really wish this was inside of one of the bigger theaters, so I could have seen this in even bigger glory, but it wasn't. That is worthy of another Oscar nod right there. Just best cinematography. It doesn't have to win, but it definitely needs some recommendation here. So, yeah. With that said, I don't think there's anything else about this movie that I can really state. I don't think that many people are going to rewatch this one a lot unless you're actually analyzing it. I don't think there's a lot of replay value there, but the discussion parts of it just need to be experienced for yourself. The performances will blow you away. The story's realism will haunt your nightmares in a good way. You know, it's actually kind of funny that this crime drama, which is basically what it is, was more exploitative than The Green Inferno, which was supposed to be a cannibal Holocaust movie. Yeah. Okay, it's not Cannibal Holocaust, but it's Amazon Cannibals. But yeah, so, yeah, final verdict, go see this. And I don't really think else to say, so, yeah. Did you see Sicario? Am I pronouncing that right? Probably not. But tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. Maybe we can get some healthy discussion going about some of these spoilers. Because I really want to meet someone who's seen this movie and talk to them about it. Because, oh my god. But yeah, if you want to see some more of my more recent videos, I will have those annotated right down here. If you want to subscribe to my channel or maybe check out the playlist that has all of the videos I've ever done before, I'll keep those linked up here. If you want to look at like my Nightcrawler review, I'll leave a link for that in the description below. Yeah, follow me on Facebook at Facebook/Kelly Young. I'll have a link for that in the description as well. As well as my Twitch channel where I am actually playing Final Fantasy X, start to finish, on Twitch. Yeah, I've already got 2 hours in. I'm probably going to do some more on Monday at, let's say, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. That's about the time I usually end up clocking on. So, yeah, subscribe if you like the channel, share the video with your friends, and I guess I'll see you all next time.